Magneto versus Red Skull. Magneto and the Red Skull are on opposite sides of history. Magneto grew up in a Jewish family living in Germany during World War II, and we all know Red Skull and Hydra's stance in World War II Germany, so it's safe to say that these two villains would almost never get along, right? In Acts of Vengeance from 1989, Magneto and Red Skull were actually temporarily united, but it's really important to note that Magneto was unsure whether this was the Red Skull that aided Germany in the slaughter of his people. So Magneto confronted him and Red Skull confirmed that he was indeed the original. It didn't take much for Magneto, the master of magnetism, to overpower the Skull, but unlike what you might think, Magneto does not take his life. Instead, Magneto leaves the Skull isolated in a stripped down fallout shelter 20 feet underground. He removed the ladder from the escape hatch, gave him 10 gallons of water, took out his homing transmitters, gave him no food and no light, just water, air, and his own depraved thoughts. Number 9. God King Doom versus Thanos. 2015's Secret Wars has Dr. Doom receiving the power of the Beyonders at the conclusion of Time Runs Out. The Latvian dictator is able to save reality from complete destruction at the hands of the Beyonders, stealing their power and merging all reality into a place called Battleworld, which he rules over as God Emperor. A few characters show up on Battleworld with their full memories intact, and they try to stop Doom and put things back to normal. One of them would be Thanos. Thanos, being the smug mad titan he is, decides to challenge Doom and refuses all of Doom's offers to work with him. So in one quick movement, Doom plunges his hand into Thanos' chest, grabs a hold of his spine, and turns his body to ash, leaving one of the most amazing comic panels ever. Number 8. Joker versus Alexander Luthor Jr. The Joker has a special something that just no other villain can really stand up to. What is it? Popularity. People love the Joker. This magic word, popularity, allows the Joker to beat out other villains that in the real world he would never be able to take down. It also allows him to save the day on occasion. In 2005's Infinite Crisis, Earth 3's Alexander Luthor Jr. attempts to remake the multiverse into one perfect reality. Perfect for him at least. By the end, well, he fails, but he finds himself cornered by Lex Luthor and Joker of New Earth, which is the mainstream continuity. Joker pretty ruthlessly scars Luthor Jr. with acid and then brings his life to a sudden end with a bang. And it was all because Alexander didn't include him in his scheme in the first place.
Number 7. Shazam vs. Superman. Shazam vs. Superman is a fight that everyone is always eager to know about when it comes to who ends up on top, who will win. They're so similar, but so different. Multiple times, the person who has won has actually been Superman though, despite his weakness to magic, specifically Shazam, or as he was once known, Captain Marvel's magic lightning. Despite this, Superman has before used Shazam's own lightning against him though, putting him in the way of it and thereby transforming Shazam back into his kid form of human boy Billy Batson, proving that sometimes it's not necessarily about power, but instead all you need is the right technique or course of action to turn a fight. I think that's personally why I would always feel like Superman would usually win that fight, because I feel like Superman, he's just got the know-how a little bit more than Shazam does. Experience, you know, experience. Number 6. Gambit vs. Wolverine. Although this might not be as satisfying for our editors here at Top 10 Nerd, sorry editors, this one comes to us from the Wolverine podcast series, really in essence a serial radio play, so not a lot of images, but there's lots of images of Wolverine and Gambit that exist, so hey. For this one, I am talking about Wolverine the Lost Trail. By the way, if you haven't listened to either The Long Night or Lost Trail, I highly recommend both. They are both very well cast, produced, and with a great story. And if you ever wanted to picture Richard Armitage as Logan, you can do so here, as it's his voice you're going to be hearing in this role. In the episode Greenhaven is Everywhere, the penultimate episode for this story, Logan frees himself from Jason Wyngarde's control, only to face a still mind-manipulated Gambit. While Gambit attempts to convince Logan with the words that joining Wyngarde's Greenhaven is the right thing for him to do, Logan of course refuses to hear it. He's not about the mind control right now, he's not feeling it. As a result, Gambit pulls out his cards and tensions begin to rise. The two actually circle each other, which you can hear reflected in the audio dialogue if you happen to be listening with headphones on. And in the end, when Logan decides the only way out of this is to take out Gambit, Remy goes for his bow staff. He's like, I don't even need my cards, I just need my bow staff. Not true in this case. Logan quickly cuts his staff in half. Gambit then asks Logan if he'll be cut in half next, to which Logan responds, nope, if I can't get through to you with words, pausing to punch him in the face before adding, "Fist to the face should do it." Which it did, so true. Number 5. The Justice League vs. Perpetua. Sometimes when it comes to one-sided fights, it's about heroes smacking down other heroes, or heroes smacking down villains. But in this case, it's about a whole team of heroes who got destroyed by a single villain. Though to be fair, this villain is also kinda like woven into the fabric of reality, as it is understood not just in the DC universe, but beyond that, into the DC multiverse, and even kinda beyond that. During the events of Death Metal, Wonder Woman faces off with Perpetua earlier on, and could have stopped her, but when Perpetua first explains the true nature of anti-crisis energy, which Wonder Woman needs to use to defeat Perpetua's crisis energy, Wonder Woman is hesitant to use the anti-crisis. During her hesitancy, Perpetua and Batman Who Laughs destroy reality, rebuilding it with crisis energy in Perpetua's image, unleashing the dark multiverse, with Batman Who Laughs later in turn betraying Perpetua. Justice League loses, with Batman, Wonder Woman, and Supes all being given a new horrible place in this dark world. While this loss is shocking and intense, later Diana does become willing to unleash the anti-crisis energy after understanding the cost of it and deciding that although it's a pretty scary change, it's still better than, you know, Perpetua's and Batman Who Laughs' way. So it's a temporary loss, but still it was quite a dramatic one, and we got a lot of cool alternate versions of characters, so yay! Number 4. Doctor Doom vs. Squirrel Girl. In the same issue that Squirrel Girl handily defeated Iron Man, although he remained unimpressed with her, Squirrel Girl also takes on master villain Doctor Doom, and once more proves her mettle as an unbeatable superhero. Here it was Squirrel Girl's ability to communicate with squirrels that allowed her to defeat Doom, causing him to abandon his own ship. I kid you not. I also love how Doom, I feel like, still sees this as a victory in his mind. Also, I bet Doom would say this was a Doombot. I don't know if this has been retconned to a Doombot yet, but I could see Doom saying that. Basically, Dorian Green has been an unstoppable force since day one, as Marvel Superheroes number 8 from the 1990s is actually her first appearance, if you can believe that.
Number 3. Batman Who Laughs vs. Perpetua. Remember how I said Joker would be showing up again? Well, I kinda half lied. It's actually a Jokerized Batman, which is taking two of the arguably most popular DC hero and villain combos and mashing them together. Who can stand in the way of that? Also, to call this fight one-sided is a little debatable, but the Batman Who Laughs rose from being just a man to becoming a multiversal level threat very quickly after he gained access to the powers of Dr. Manhattan. This level of power allowed him to face and defeat Perpetua, one of, if not the, most powerful god in DC Comics, who is mother of the multiverse. He became the nightmare of one of the most powerful beings in all of DC Comics, sealing her away within fragments of the source wall. Number 2. Thanos vs. Loki. Taking a break from comic books for a moment here, let's journey to the MCU. Loki is one of those characters who has elevated himself beyond the status of villain into a bit more of an anti-hero role, and the popularity of Tom Hiddleston's portrayal of the character is likely somewhat to blame for that. But popularity is not saving this character. In the opening of Avengers Infinity War, Thanos attacks the remaining Asgardians after the events of Ragnarok. Though they are Asgardians, he does seem to lay waste to them pretty easily. With Loki feigning allegiance to the Mad Titan, he makes a move against Grimace with a dagger only to be stopped, disarmed, and choked to death without the big bad even seeming to break a sweat, truly solidifying just how much of a threat Thanos is going to be. And in at number 1 is THRAGG vs. DINOSAURUS. The Viltrumites from the Invincible comic series are a race of near invulnerable, incredibly strong, world-conquering aliens. But none among them stands as strong, as invulnerable as Grand Regent THRAGG. Battle-hardened over thousands of years, only the most powerful characters can even hope to stand one-on-one against this powerhouse. David Anders, the villain known as Dinosaurus, is not one of those characters. While Dinosaurus is very, very strong, it's more his intelligence that is his greatest weapon. Dinosaurus allied himself with Invincible around issue 90 of the comics, and he would see THRAGG attempt to take down Mark. Dinosaurus attacks THRAGG, but his claws break on THRAGG's skin. THRAGG pummels the Dino Man, but he stops, distracted by an explosion, giving Dinosaurus the chance to chomp on his head, only for him to completely shatter his teeth, giving THRAGG the chance to mock him and then break his jaw and leave him for dead. Luckily, Dinosaurus uses the opportunity to heal Steel and escape with Mark.
In at number 10, Shazam vs. Superman. In the movie about Shazam, we had Superman making a surprise entrance at the very end, which would lead many to assume that these two are friends. Well, when it comes to the comic book world, these two have definitely fought on many occasions, mainly because the writers love using someone like Shazam who can hold his own against the Man of Steel. Shazam has a lot to work with. He's strong, fast, tough, he has lightning abilities to rely on, and a ton of stamina. However, with Superman under the yellow sun, he shows a lot more experienced combat, plus he has heat vision to rely on as well. Something that does get overlooked though is that Superman can hear and see much further. When it comes to the type of long range battle these two would inevitably end up in, this becomes a key asset to his arsenal. If there's a yellow sun out, my bet's gonna be on Superman. In at number 9, Captain America vs. Batman. The Dark Knight is a staple of the Justice League for a reason. His detective work along with his wealth and combat skills are his greatest assets. Just like Steve Rogers, he has morals when it comes to dealing with enemies. So it would be interesting to see how a fight between these two justice-driven superheroes would play out. Although the only thing keeping Bruce Wayne in this fight is his gear and technology. Standing alone in a fistfight wouldn't end up well for the billionaire. Captain America has peak human strength, speed, and a vibranium steel alloy shield. If both of them could use weapons during this fight, it would be a pretty even matchup. At the end of the day though, this superhero fight would be more of a battle of wills than strength. In at number 8, Iron Man vs. Cyborg. This one seems like something that we should have seen a long time ago, but that's why it's on this list. A matchup between these two machines would be incredible to see. Iron Man's different suits would no doubt be able to hold their own against Cyborg. I mean, if he was wearing the Hulkbuster armor, it would be tough for Cyborg to land significant strikes. That being said, if Tony ran into an unplanned fight with Victor Stone, he might not be so lucky. Unlike Stark, Victor is infused with his tech and is enhanced by cybernetic weapons. Plus, to make matters worse for Tony, he has the ability to hack into any system, which means Cyborg could just cut off communications with Jarvis and take control of Tony's suit. At that point, he better have a white flag that he's ready to wave.
Number 7, Joker vs. Simon. Yes, it is the Joker again, and guess what? He will appear later on as well. But I also hear you asking, Adam, who the heck is Simon? Exactly. That's my point. You think that the infamous Joker is going to fall to a guy named Simon, who most people haven't even heard of? Simon is a villain of the Teen Titans who has vast telekinesis and telepathic powers, and he is also the leader of the Fearsome Five. But in Salvation Run number 2, he is a member of the new Injustice League when a bunch of villains get exiled to an alien world. He attempts to convince his fellow supervillains that escape is impossible, and then proceeds to lay down plans for beginning a new civilization, only to be very abruptly interrupted by the Joker, who runs up and smashes Simon's brain in with a rock, repeatedly. Like I said, it was very abrupt. Number 6, General Zod versus Captain Boomerang. Never put a captain up against a general. It will not go well. In 2016's Suicide Squad, in literally the second issue, Task Force X are sent on a mission to Russia to retrieve or destroy an unknown device. Turns out that device is actually a portal to the Phantom Zone. Rather than leave it be, Captain Boomerang approaches the portal and is literally incinerated down to his ankles instantly by none other than General Zod, who was trapped inside only to break free. I doubt the Boomerang guy would have been able to help much in the squad's fight against Zod. Honestly, it's a miracle any of them actually survived at all. Number 5, Venom vs. Sandman. In Peter Parker's Spider-Man Volume 1, number 16, Sandman took to reforming the Sinister Six to go after Spider-Man. Now, one of those six was Eddie Brock, aka Venom. Being the villain he once was, Venom betrayed Sandman and the two got into a fight. Things quickly take a turn for the violent and chompy as Brock/Venom takes a huge chunk out of Sandman's body, causing Sandy to destabilize and break down, unable to stop himself from dissipating into a nearby storm drain. It's a pretty awful and pretty quick dispatching. Sandman does eventually return, but not as his old self, as the years spent in a kind of ghostly form left him in kind of tatters. Damn Venom. Number 4, Kite Man vs. Riddler's army. Okay, I am a sucker for an underdog. In Batman Volume 3, there was the war of jokes and riddles between the Joker and the Riddler, surprisingly, each fueled by their desire to take Batman's life. Now, each of these lunatics had gathered up a group of villains to their side, and they caused a hell of a lot of damage to Gotham and its people in their war. One person caught in the crossfire would be Charles Brown. Charles became a mole for Batman in Joker's army, and when Riddler found out, he brought Charles's son to an end. Charles became Kite Man and joined up with the Joker to get revenge. With Batman's help, Riddler takes down Joker's army one by one, Batman, leaving only Kite Man, who is forced to switch sides. In the final climactic battle though, Kite Man helps Batman and Riddler's army infiltrate the Joker's holdout, and when the battle is won and the villains turn on Batman, Kite Man had a backup plan that allowed him to almost single-handedly incapacitate 8 of the biggest bads on Batman's rogues gallery, helping Batman save the day. Never underestimate Kite Man. Hell yeah.
In at number 3, Spider-Man vs. Nightwing. Nightwing certainly is overlooked when it comes to superheroes. He has peak human strength, he's a trained acrobat, and has learned martial arts from the Dark Knight himself. Dick Grayson also has a ton of bat tech at his side. With a reinforced Kevlar suit and his taser baton, Spidey better not get too close. At the end of the day though, Peter Parker has precognitive spider sense, which means landing a strike would be incredibly difficult for Grayson to do. Not to mention, all it would really take to subdue Nightwing would be a couple of web shooters. I mean, Grayson just doesn't have anything close to the reaction time that Spider-Man does. If he gets caught up in a web, it's pretty much over for Nightwing at that point. In at number 2, Quicksilver vs. Flash. While it would be cool to see a race between these two speedsters, we're strictly talking about fights right now. Quicksilver has greater training when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, but he's never had to deal with someone that has a reaction time like Barry Allen. At the end of the day, the Flash is faster, stronger, and can throw friggin' lightning. Although it is his Speed Force that gives him these abilities, so without the Speed Force, my money's on Quicksilver. That being said, it's more likely that the Flash would crush Quicksilver in a fight. He can move much faster than him, and if he needed to, he could slow down time enough to just smash him with a giant lightning punch, and then it's lights out for Quicksilver. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Deadpool vs. Wolverine. This is a superhero fight that deserves its own movie in our opinion. Deadpool has certainly made audiences aware of his obsession with Wolverine, and knowing Logan, he probably is pretty annoyed by this, which could set audiences up for an excellent battle that would be long and really brutal. Both of their healing factors would certainly give each other a lot of trouble, but even though Deadpool is essentially immortal, Wolverine could still best him in a fight. The difference between these two is that Wolverine is infused with adamantium. Plus, Logan just has much more experience with fighting supernatural beings than Deadpool does. If these two ever get into a fight, I'm putting my money on Wolverine, even though Deadpool is my favorite. And he should be yours too.
Number 10, Iron Man vs. Squirrel Girl. I love how even during Doreen Green's very first appearance, she earned her title of being unbeatable. The very first time we meet Squirrel Girl, she's attempting to impress Iron Man in the hopes of earning a place at his side as his sidekick. The crazy part is she successfully ambushed him too. During a test flight for his new collision avoidance radar, that's really what he calls it, Doreen jumps onto his flying suit of armor, with him inside. Unable to see except through digital readouts that appear on a visor he's wearing, he is successfully surprised and thrown off course. When Iron Man attempts to remove his visor, Doreen uses her tail to block his vision still. In the end, they both crash to the ground, and Doreen introduces herself as Squirrel Girl, explaining that she simply wanted to prove herself to him in order to earn a place as his pard, short for partner. Sadly, he turns her down, even though she did prove that she's pretty awesome, I think, in that issue. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, please head on down, give this video a thumbs up, also to let us know that you want to hear about some more one-sided fights. Number 9, Trinity vs. Harley Quinn. In one of what can only be described as one of the most wild fights ever that seems to be more about clout than powers or ability, Harley Quinn managed to defeat not one, not two, but all 3 heroes that we consider as belonging to DC's Holy Trinity. We're talking about Batman, Wonder Woman, and of course, Superman. When did this go down? During Heroes in Crisis. And how did Harley do it? By playing on the weaknesses of the heroes she was up against, and also utilizing Batman's utility belt, of course, which in and of itself generally is equipped with items needed to take down Bat's colleagues, because that's just how Batman rolls. It's like I always got kryptonite on me though, just in case, you never know. Number 8, Jubilee vs. Wolverine. Sometimes heroes get slapped by other heroes. Slapped. Such a great onomatopoeia. In the case of Jubilee, this is what happened when Wolverine came face to face with her. Of course, this wasn't just normal Jubes, this was Jubes under the influence of the Shadow King. She was possessed by him, in fact. Initially, Wolverine baited her in by promising that he wouldn't hurt her. Wolverine says, in fact, "I ain't gonna fight you, Jube. I couldn't." But it turns out that that's a lie. Although he doesn't badly injure Jubilee, knowing she is not in control of herself at this moment, he does knock her out with a slap. slapped, if you will. Of course, this wasn't a direct fight between the two heroes, as Wolverine was only doing this to protect others from Jubilee, and likely also to protect Jubilee from herself at this moment in time.
In at number 7, Thor vs Green Lantern. Next up is the Nordic God versus the Interplanetary Defender. Hal Jordan's greatest strength in this fight will certainly come from his ring. Being able to create weapons, or any constructs for that matter, out of thin air will definitely come in handy, and certainly has in the past. He has easily overwhelmed Superman level beings in the past with his willpower alone. However, when it comes to Thor, he may have met his match. Thor can toss planets into black holes, and with his hammer at his side, there's no telling what damage that he could serve up to the Green Lantern. If he somehow uses his hammer wisely in this fight, he could absorb any of the Green Lantern's energy attacks and just smash through any of his constructs. No question, Thor would destroy Green Lantern in a fight. In at number 6, Avengers vs X-Men. This is a very interesting matchup and would be one of the most ultimate superhero team-up fights that we've ever seen. Each side certainly has their strengths and weaknesses, and with Disney acquiring 21st Century Fox, it may only be a matter of time before we actually get to see this play out on the big screen. The Avengers' biggest assets are Thor and Hulk by far, but the X-Men also have some extraordinary and powerful mutants as well. To make matters more confusing, you also have some X-Men that were also Avengers, so this fight could even see defectors and betrayals as well. We think Thor could handle Storm easily, the Hulk could take out Wolverine no problem, and Captain America could subdue Cyclops. I still would say though at the end of the day that the X-Men would win in this fight. They're a team made up of supernatural abilities, where the Avengers has more human-based heroes that would certainly have a difficult time trying to deal with this situation. In at number 5, Captain Marvel vs Supergirl. Carol Danvers showed us during her solo movie along with her appearances in Endgame that she is an incredibly powerful foe for anyone brave enough to take her on. However, I wouldn't count Supergirl out just yet. She's equally as talented and strong as Superman, and therefore has the same abilities as he does, which would be huge in battle. It's been argued that if Captain Marvel can enter into her binary form, then she would overcome Supergirl, although if she could absorb energy from the sun, she could also power herself up as well as deplete Supergirl's powers. That being said, if Supergirl could hold off this binary form long enough, Carol would have to revert back to her normal state, which I would then give the victory to Supergirl. It's definitely a pretty even fight for the most part, but just imagine if Supergirl got a hold of a newly energy drained Danvers. She would laser blast a hole through her chest, and it would be pretty much game over for Captain Marvel at that point. In at number 4, Hulk vs Superman. This fight has actually happened in the comic books, but getting to see it on the screen would be amazing for sure. We haven't had a Superman vs Hulk fight in a long time, and many have debated this online, with some stating that the Hulk wouldn't just get stronger the angrier that he gets in the fight, and therefore would overpower Clark Kent. When it comes to just fist fighting, sure, the Hulk may land some pretty incredible shots, but at the end of the day, we gotta give this one to Superman. In fact, out of all of their fights together, the Man of Steel comes out on top. Superman can boost himself through solar energy, and strength aside, he's a pretty rational fighter. Clark Kent doesn't normally just charge into a fight, he usually can assess a situation and then take the best approach, something that the Hulk just doesn't do. Plus, if at any point the Hulk reverts back to Bruce Banner, it's game over, man.
Number 3, Batman vs Bane. Probably one of the most famous fights in comic book history. In this fight, Batman is brutalized by Bane. Bane ends up escaping Arkham and decides to see, how much havoc he can cause. When Batman ends up overwhelmed by the hordes of recently escaped criminals swarming the streets, Bane takes this as an opportunity to strike. Run down and exhausted after a night of non-stop fighting at this point, Batman is easily defeated by the villain, who famously breaks Batman's back over his knee, which we have that awesome page of, that awesome cover. Ouch. Bruce Wayne's Batman would return from this, but it would take him some time to heal. As you know, does happen if you break your back, which you can heal from. It is possible, but it's not super easy to do. Number 2, Wolverine vs Punisher. In maybe one of the most controversial of one-sided fights of all time, we see two heroes fight against one another, both who generally use less than heroic methods for getting things done. However, one of them still seems to be called a hero on the regular, that being Wolverine, while the other is often relegated to a different category, that of anti-hero, that being Punisher. It's kinda interesting. The two originally were kind of working toward the same goal here, but when they both differ on the method of how to deal with the situation, Wolverine ends up getting pretty humiliated in the ensuing fight, with Punisher even at one point steamrolling Logan. And that's after he does a whole bunch of other awful things to him, some of which I can't even say. That's how bad they are. Number 1, Joker versus Superman. Can we even call this one a fight? It's kinda just like straight up murder, really. Although maybe rightfully executed murder? I don't know. I don't think murder's ever really right. I guess it also depends on which side of this conflict you feel you're on, though I think by the end of Injustice, pretty much all of us are on Batman's side, right? No? Yes? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But back to the fight at hand. This one obviously went down in the alternate reality of Injustice. Here, Joker and Harley Quinn end up manipulating Superman into killing Lois by making him think he's fighting Doomsday. In doing so, they not only have killed Lois, but also her and Superman's future offspring, and all of Metropolis gets blown up too as well. Unsurprisingly, Superman does not take this very well, and when they get Joker in an interrogation room, Superman ends up cracking under the pressure of Joker's unrelenting grin, killing the Joker in cold blood. Because that's what would probably also happen if the Joker came up against Superman. Well, just saying, if Superman wanted to at any time, he could just pretty much end that.